What happened at Jericho? Why do we tell this story? Well, because it's a really good story. There are several layers to it. Joshua and Israel are defeated before they even get there. Then Rahab, a prostitute, helps them sneak into the city. The Israelites pretend to be fleeing. They march around the city and the walls collapse. It is undeniably exciting. But the story of Jericho contains another story. It's actually an ancient Near Eastern battle story in disguise. The Battle of Jericho is framed by two treaties. The treaty that Canaan makes with the king of Babylon and the treaty Israel makes with God. These treaties shape everything that happens next. The book of Joshua is all about the conquest of Canaan, but the conquest doesn't start here. It starts 400 years earlier when Abram, who will become Abraham, makes a treaty with the king of Sodom after rescuing Lot from the kings of the east. This treaty gives Israel rights to the land of Canaan, and it's a right that they've been fighting for ever since. But what was Canaan like? Canaan was ruled by kings, not one big, powerful king, but many small, relatively weak kings. And these kings were not just political leaders, they were religious leaders too. Their authority came directly from the gods, so much so that their titles include the phrase "in the presence of the gods" or "in the eyes of the gods." And these kings worshipped many gods, not just one. They worshipped El, the supreme god of the pantheon, and Baal, the god of rain, fertility, and sometimes the underworld. These two gods alone make up a whole other story. Baal is regularly dying and coming back to life. He's killed by his sister Enot, and then brought back to life by his mother. This cycle of death and resurrection mirrors the cycle of the seasons. When Baal dies, there's no rain. Crops die, and the world is barren. When Baal comes back to life, there's rain, crops grow, and the world is fruitful. And the Canaanite kings were dependent on Baal's favor. If he didn't come back to life, there would be famine. Their power and authority came from the gods, but they also had to appease the gods, or else their power would go away. And the god who demanded the most attention was probably Melkart, the god of the underworld. Melchizedek was the ruler of the netherworld, and he ruled with an iron fist. People who died became slaves in his great storehouse, forced to push huge stones all day. They were stuck there forever, unless someone paid their ransom. This made Melchizedek one of the richest gods in the pantheon, and people regularly appeased him just in case. They offered him sacrifices, gifts and food, anything to avoid accidentally insulting him. Everyone knew that the last thing you wanted to do was end up in his storehouse. And this entire religious system shaped how the Canaanites interacted with each other. The kings had to pay tribute to the god Melchizedek to keep their people safe. The cities had to obey the kings in order to be protected, and everyone had to stay on the good side of Baal and El to ensure fertility and general prosperity. In short, Canaan wasn't just a bunch of disorganized cities, it was a tightly knit society bound together by religion and fear. And that's why the book of Joshua begins with the treaty between Canaan and Babylon. It shows us what kind of situation Israel is walking into. As soon as Israel crosses the Jordan River, the priests from Gilgal dip their staffs into the water, and the water stops flowing. It's a miracle that allows them to safely cross. But more importantly, it's a sign that the gods of Canaan have been driven out. It's as if the water itself recognizes that there's a new sheriff in town. This is good news for Israel, because the very first thing they encounter is a treaty that outlines exactly what Canaan looks like under the control of Babylon. The king of Babylon controls everything west of the Jordan River. He owns Jerusalem, Hebron, and even the coast. And this treaty puts the Israelites at a massive disadvantage. They don't stand a chance of defeating the Canaanite army head-on, not to mention their dependence on El and Baal for fertility and prosperity. Israel could never conquer Canaan if they tried to fight their way through it, so they do something different. They attack the heart of Canaanite culture, its cities. Jericho was one of the biggest cities in Canaan, and it was protected by high walls. But the walls didn't protect the people from the Israelites. The people did. That was their job, and they were prepared to do it. But before the Israelites attacked, one of them defected. Her name was Rahab, and she was a prostitute. She helped the Israelites sneak into the city undetected, and her reward was that her family was spared and she got to marry Salmon, the guy responsible for sneaking them in. Now, we can't help but wonder why she did it. Maybe she hated living under the rule of the Canaanite kings. Or maybe she saw which way the wind was blowing and wanted to be on the winning side. But whatever her motivation, she does the Israelites a great service. It allows them to attack the city while most of the able-bodied men are fast asleep. But the way they attack is pure genius. They pretended to be fleeing from the north. They left their camp, marched around the city, and then attacked. From the perspective of the city's guards, it looked like the Israelites were running away. They didn't pose any threat, so they did the logical thing and opened the gates. But once inside, the Israelites went crazy. They slaughtered everyone and everything. They pillaged the city. They took whatever they wanted and destroyed the rest. And this scene brings us back to that ancient Near Eastern battle story. The Israelites attacked from an unexpected direction. They won without losing anyone. The city's defenses were completely overwhelmed. The king was probably killed in the fighting. And most importantly, the city's guards were utterly powerless. But there's one more detail that drives this point home. You see, after the Israelites destroyed Jericho, they set up camp near it. And the next morning, look what they find. 2 spies from the king of Babylon looking to assess the damage. What's interesting is that these spies aren't fleeing for their lives. They don't seem to understand what just happened. Why would they be so nonchalant after losing their biggest city? Well, it's because they don't know that the gods of Canaan are gone. They still think El and Baal are in charge. They still think Melchizedek is in his storehouse collecting tribute. They do unrealize that the gods have been replaced by one true God who attacks cities with prostitutes and marches around them 7 times. So these spies return to the Valley of the Kings, where every single king from Sodom and Gomorrah are gathered for a treaty meeting. And this treaty tells us everything we need to know about the political situation in Canaan. All of these kings are allied against Israel. They will defend each other's cities and protect each other's land. In short, this treaty makes war between Israel and Canaan inevitable. The kings of Canaan think they're safe. They think Israel has no chance of surviving the journey through the wilderness. They think their gods will protect them from this tiny nomadic tribe, but they couldn't be more wrong. Israel is a nation set apart, a nation chosen by God to do his work, a nation that will bring monotheism to the world. And the Canaanite kings are the first to learn that you don't mess with Israel, because the God of Israel is jealous, and he will not be mocked. If you enjoyed this episode, you can help us spread the message by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. If you want to watch more episodes, you can do that here. But thank you for watching. Thank you for watching.